Okay, let's begin, Al. Let's begin, and let's begin with our very first boss, who you encounter in the Suthorn Ruins. Its name is the Seismic Talus. I
I
thought of
like,
you fighting this. Anytime I see a Talus now, I think of you.
you know what? Same. So I
You
think
just
of
think of
myself.
yourself, yeah. Yeah.
I'm like, oh, it's my thing. I did kind of pop off a little bit seeing a seismic talus. I thought it was gonna be more like more Eox coded than just from the trailers. I don't know why, but then they said it was a talus, so I was like, oh, that's really cool. Um, but I think like when we were talking about dungeons, I think I mentioned that it's a really good the first impression boss from the first impression dungeon. So that's kind of how I feel about it. So I don't think it's going to make it very like high on the list because it's just a really good tells you how, you know, the game's going to go, how you're going to fight bosses in the future, and
Mhm.
actually it does kind of help me fight a future boss. The stuff that I did similarly to another boss later, but the other boss was more fun. So it's really good, and it's a really good starter boss.
Yeah, I pretty much echo that. Nothing, nothing special. I don't think it basically is there to show you how to fight bosses using echoes.
Hmm.
That's pretty much it. This one is like kind of limited because you don't have a lot of like your strong echoes yet, or you don't have a lot of like I guess like most players are probably still kind of feeling out how to attack using the ecosystem. Basing this off the first playthrough, of course. So yeah, I feel like it's a fine boss. It doesn't present like much of a challenge. I don't think, but I don't think it's supposed to. I think it's supposed to just really kind of ease you in. The only thing I don't like about it, and this is kind of like there for a lot of bosses in this game, is it has like the Majora's Mask 3D thing where it's like the big glaring obvious weak point that you have to hit, like the
Hmm.
big purple ball. And that shows up like a couple different times and in a couple different bosses here. But I think it's fine. Like I think he's a fine like starter boss.
Yeah, it did well. It's kind of funny because I'm trying to remember. I don't think I really used Echoes. I think I just grabbed it with Bind and like ripped the ball away from him until he fell apart, and then went and used Sword Fighter for him. So I probably didn't do what the game wanted me to do, but
Hmm.
I still did something, and it worked out really well.
I can't remember. I think I probably did the same, to be honest. But knowing me, I think I attacked the ball with Sword Fighter form first,
Uh-huh.
or at least tried to. But yeah, I feel like it's a fine intro boss. Nothing,
Yeah.
nothing more, nothing less than what it needed to be. So we're gonna see a better version of this later on, anyways. So certainly
Me
not
too.
bottom of the barrel. I don't think. Like there's a few bosses I know that'll be worse than this one, but yeah, you're probably right. It's probably not gonna be punching for the top spot.
Hmm.
Um, well, the Seismic Talus, at least right now, is number one on our list because, in fact, it is the only boss we've talked about. So that's good. Let's have it. Let's give it its moment in the sun here, because I don't think it's going to last long. I do think that our next boss, whose name is Mogriff, I think that this is a pretty fun boss. Actually,
Hmm.
um, I like this boss. Like, again, I don't know if it's gonna like contend for number one, but first and foremost, I really like the design of Mogriff. Just the cool like mole with the sunglasses. He just looks like very classic Zelda to me. And
Yeah.
and I think that this is like a fun boss fight too, with like the sand and the quicksand and everything like that, kind of impeding your By the way, golly, I wish I would have bought those sandals that you
Oh,
don't
you
fall
didn't
into
have the
quicksand.
sandals.
No, I don't think I had enough rupees, or maybe I did, and I was like, I should save this for something else better. I should
Hmm.
have just bought them right away. But I actually feel like that kind of added to the challenge a little bit to me, which was fun. And yeah, they're just some like cool attacks, and this was the first boss that I was like, oh, this is a cool use of echoes because you get all of
Hmm.
the like the elephant statue and the bird statue, and you use them against this boss to like when he's doing his charge attack, he just slams right into those guys, which took me an embarrassingly long time to figure out that that is what you need to do, by the way.
Yeah.
But yeah, I thought that this was like a really fun boss fight, and like the tornadoes that it summons kind of add to the chaos, and it was a cool fight. I like this one actually a lot.
I did too. I like the chaos. I like the pattern. And again, I wouldn't say it was like the most challenging, and maybe because I did have the sandals, and so I didn't have to worry about my environment too much, which is fine. I like how um like like little hills of sand would be falling from the ceiling and you could blow them away to get hearts if you were running out of hearts at the time. I imagine that's going to be really helpful in like hero mode. Oh wait, hearts don't show up
Yeah,
in
I don't
hero
think you
mode.
get hearts
Never
in hero
mind.
mode.
Uh, but like I found it helpful because I didn't have a lot of hearts at the time, and yeah, I thought he was interesting looking, and definitely fun to pick up on the pattern and see how to knock him out in a way so that you could defeat him. So yeah, I mean, I definitely thought it was better than Seismic Talus at least.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. Like this one is definitely number one on the list above Seismic Talus. Again, I don't know if he's gonna be like number one overall, but pretty pretty fun like little boss. It was a good step up. I feel like in strategy and difficulty from the intro boss. Like to me, that progression felt really nice, like in that
Mm-hmm.
sweet spot. All right, so yeah, we're putting Mogriff at number one for this, and then we're bumping down
Solid.
Seismic Talus number two.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. All right, Vocavor. What do you think, Gal? What do you think of this big jellyfish? Not a jellyfish.
Yeah,
I don't know. What is this thing?
it's like a fish that has a bunch of eggs on its back, and
Weird
it's got
looking
like really
fish.
weird wide set eyes. And I think like the little cutscene for it was really fun, and but I didn't find it very difficult. And maybe because if I didn't have sword fighter form, it probably would have been needed more strategy. But I was like, I have plenty of energy at this point. I'm just gonna go over and wail on the eggs on its back and knock it over. Even when it's like throwing like the whirlpools at you, you could
Yeah.
just swim around them really quickly, or you can swim over to it before it throws the whirlpools and you just like sword slash the eggs. So I maybe it's just because I felt like he was too easy to cheese and that it wasn't very interesting. I just maybe I wish it was just a little bit more interesting.
Yeah. I thought that this was an easy fight because I corrected my mistake from the Gerudo region and I did buy the accessory that lets you swim faster. So
Mhm.
I was like basically on his tail the entire time.
Mhm.
I did like the whirlpool part, and I liked actually like the 2D water sections in general for most of Echoes of Wisdom. Um, you are right though. Like it was pretty easy to just like bind it, slash the eggs on its back. I never felt like this was like kind of a challenge. Like I
Mhm.
was never in threat of dying, which I feel like if you're fighting a boss underwater, you kind of should feel like you're fighting the environment as well as the boss, right? Like,
Yeah.
but I feel like it was so easy to refill your air and make sure that you weren't going to drown under there. That it kind of took some of that I don't know, some of that urgency or some of that threat away. Um, I will say though, like I thought that this was a fun boss, and like it wasn't a bad time by any means. It was slightly easier than it could have been, but for me, like I would say certainly above the Seismic Talus.
Oh, I was gonna say below the seismic talus. Maybe
Ah,
because I have a bias towards talus.
I don't know about that. Like this is still, I think, a pretty fun boss. I
You know what? I
I'll tell you,
don't feel that
I'm not willing to
strongly
die
about
on
it.
that hill. Like I
Yeah, like both of us are like we don't feel that strongly. But doesn't that say something about it though? That we don't feel that strongly about it?
Well, I'll be honest with you, actually. So, I usually, when we do lists like these, like definitive ranking stuff like that, I actually try not to make a list beforehand because I kind
Mm.
of feel like if you make a list, then like you're almost wanting to stick to that, right? And like
Yeah.
I want to be able to be like influenced, I guess, by what you have to say, or you know what I mean, like just something
Yeah.
that I don't have to stick to what I'm doing. So, but that being said, like I'm kind of looking at this list and of bosses. I don't know if there's like any one boss that I really do feel like I'd like really go to bat for or feel strongly about. And that's kind of like what we were talking about last week with the stories. Like I feel like everything is fine. Like everything is kind of on a scale of like of good to like great even, let's just say, but
Hmm.
nothing like A plus plus plus, you know?
I
Maybe
guess
some
I
things
can.
that get close to it, but my
Yeah,
point is there's nothing I'd really campaign for.
there's some where I feel like both of us are gonna feel pretty strongly about them being at the top of the list, but I feel like everything that's in the middle to the bottom, we're both kind of like they're okay, and it's fine. They could probably change tomorrow.
Yeah. Well, how about this? I think that we should put Vocavor over Seismictalis. I think we should.
Okay,
I think
that's
we
okay.
should. All right. So let's get that. What a weird name, by the way. Vocavor.
Vocavore.
Vocavor. Is that how you're supposed to Vocavor? I don't know.
I don't know. Apparently, I don't know how to pronounce things. So,
Well, how if you see one or more tries, trees? Excuse me. Oh, jeez. Okay,
so
number
goofy.
1, Mogriff. Number 2, Vocavor. Number 3, the Seismictalis. Let's go over to our next boss, and that is Big Daddy Ganon himself, or at least the
Big
echo.
Daddy Ganon.
The echo of Ganon. This design is so good of Ganon. Like, he just looks so good in this art style. It is criminal, actually, that we don't have any amiibo of Ganon or Zelda for that matter.
Oh, at all? What?
Yeah.
Like, we don't have any amiibo for Echoes of Wisdom at all, which is like so weird.
By the way, the 10-year anniversary of amiibo just passed.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Are we done with amiibo? Like, are games still getting amiibo?
What was the last amiibo to come out? I can't remember. Like, was it Tears of the Kingdom?
One, and those were a year ago. I think last November, December that we had the Zelda and the Ganondorf one.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, maybe they'll do the same thing for Echoes of Wit, like a year after they'll just release Zelda and Ganon again. Maybe it's just like a tradition. I don't know. I can't think of the last amiibo that we got after Zelda and Ganon, though. I mean, they're definitely slowing it down, right?
Yeah, they have to be. Which is kind of a bummer. Because, I mean, not that I utilize them very well, but I do like collecting them.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, like, it's kind of like, on one hand, the original idea behind the amiibo was, like, the Smash Bros. Fighters. And there's, like, 80 fighters there. So, like, you're never going to see production, I don't think, like that. But it does feel like they're very selective with, you know, their. I mean, like they still do make amiibo, and a lot of times, like, they have been releasing amiibo for games, like, after they've been out for a while. Like Xenoblade Chronicles 3, for example, just got some amiibo not that long ago, like within the last year, and I mean that game came out in like 2023, so it's not impossible that we get amiibo here, but yeah, it certainly has ramped down for sure.
Mm-hmm.
That being said, this is a great boss.
Yeah, back to Ganon. I think we say this about Ganon and Ganondorf a lot. It's almost not fair that they're on the list because, like, I just really loved the moment of fighting him so early on in the game with Link. But then finally, after almost 40 years, being able to fight him as Zelda was just so satisfying. And I wouldn't have cared what he looked like. But it does help that he looked really good. The fight was so reminiscent of A Link to the Past and A Link Between Worlds. I love that when I ran out of energy, I found a way to fight him still with my echoes. Mm-hmm. But I also loved going into Sword Fighter form and, like, doing the Dead Man's Volley was super fun.
Classic.
So it's almost not fair that Ganon is on this list.
Yeah, I mean, for what we have right now, like, he's going to be number 1. I think unquestionably. It's a cool fight, and it's really cool too because you get kind of the story callback as well, which adds to the fight as well, because you basically like having a rematch of Link versus Ganon, but now it's Zelda versus Ganon, which is pretty sweet. I don't know if this takes away from the fight for me, but I noticed, like, I knew for sure this wasn't like actually Ganon itself, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like, so that's, I guess, one thing that it's not even a negative, but it's like one thing that's there, right? Like, you know, it's not like Ganon, it's like a Shadow Ganon or Echo Ganon, so it's not quite the same level of intensity, but it is still pretty sweet that you get to throw down with Ganon. And the fight itself is really cool, and his design is cool, and there's just like something so sacred about doing the Dead Man's Volley. Yeah, this is good stuff.
This is solid, and for now, it's definitely number 1 on the list.
I actually might suggest to you here, Al, that I don't think Ganon is going to be number 1 on our list for long. I think I would put our next boss at number 1.
Yeah, I agree. And the next 2 bosses are probably going to beat it, to be honest.
Yeah, okay, so we're on the same page. Well, let's start with one here. The fact that this boss is here at all is so awesome. Volvagia makes its long-awaited return to the Zelda series. I I mean, we haven't seen Volvagia since Ocarina of Time. Is that right? No, not
Well,
counting Hyrule Warriors. Not counting
okay,
that.
you got Hyrule Warriors, and he like shapeshifts into a man, which is weird because I always thought Volvagia was a woman,
Yeah,
or a
not
female,
counting Hyrule
whatever.
Warriors.
Not that it matters. But you have, is it Moragia from Tears of the Kingdom, where it's like the three-headed thing that comes out of the mountain?
That's not.
I mean, it's similar. They're trying to go for something there. I know it's not the same thing, but it's like they were doing a name play thing, and it was a lizard that came out of the Death Mountain.
And that was a fun fight, by the way.
That was a really fun fight.
Yeah.
But like in the sense of like pure Volvagia from Ocarina of Time, I don't think we've seen it since Ocarina of Time.
Which is just really cool. I thought that Echoes of Wisdom... Yeah, I was about to say Echoes of Wisdom. What game am I talking about? I thought Echoes of Wisdom, not Tears of the Kingdom, Echoes of Wisdom did a really good job of like bringing back those classic like Zelda bosses that you haven't seen in a long time. And Volvagia was like... It was just like so cool to have Volvagia back at all. I thought the design was awesome. The arena was challenging because it's like... I feel like in Ocarina of Time, you could just kind of run away from Volvagia a lot, and you're going to be fine without necessarily having to worry about like the rocks falling on you, anything like that.
Yeah.
But mostly, for the most part.
I was more concerned like when you're running up to hit Volvagia in Ocarina of Time, like it whips its hair.
Yeah.
And it does like 4 hearts of damage. It's brutal. So.
It's a terrible attack, yeah. Actually, I think Volvagia is one of the toughest like bosses that you do in Ocarina of Time.
When I do it without losing taking any damage, I'm so impressed with myself. I'm like, wow, I'm the best Ocarina of Time player ever.
So I would say, I thought that this, as far as boss fights and Echoes of Wisdom go, I think that this is like on the more difficult side. That being said, it's still not that difficult, I don't think. Yeah. But there's definitely a few times where like Volvagia will position itself and it's kind of out of your reach or whatever. So you can either summon like your flying echoes and kind of hope to God that they attack Volvagia before it gets its big, massive, like laser breath attack or whatever the hell it is. So yeah, I thought that this one was challenging. I thought the arena was cool and also added a challenge as well. Because you can run away, but there's a little bit more, I guess, strategy involved. There's lava, yeah. The platforms are not connected. So I thought that was cool. And actually, you're not going to hear me say this a lot for these bosses, but I thought the theme was cool during this fight. I don't think that the music really sticks out to me to be honest, like almost any of these fights, but I do remember this one thinking that it was pretty cool. So yeah, I think Volvagia is like a good number one. The only thing that I don't like about this fight is, again, it's got the big, nasty, this is my weak spot, green wart on its throat or whatever. And it's like, did we need that?
It's a giant necklace thing. It's not a wart.
Well, so, whatever it is, it's like, come on.
How were you fighting Volvagia? Because I was again, this is how I knew that, like, how to do this, because Seismic Talus taught me this. I went and grabbed the orb and, like, yanked it off and that would knock Volvagia out enough for me to go hit it.
You know what? I don't think I did that. I think I just attacked it. I think I attacked the orb until, like, Volvagia was stunned and ready for me to pummel.
I just like grabbed like the Deku Baba's heads, you can grab them with bind and just like rip them off their body. I was just doing that with all the bosses, I guess.
That's probably so much easier than what I did, to be honest. But I don't know. I kind of liked it. I was like, felt more like a fight, like it felt like a brawl.
I love that there's different. I love that this is one of the freedom things that I love in Zelda now, where you could find different ways to beat these bosses. Yeah. Versus back in the day, it was like there was like only really one way that you could do it.
Yeah. I mean, to be honest, like that was kind of my second record. Like my first plan of attack was to just like fire arrows at it in sword fighter form. Uh-huh. I probably should have just used bind to yank off that little green wart though. Would have been easier.
I love it.
Well, what do you think, Al? What are your thoughts on old Volvagia here?
Oh, number one for sure. I'm going to say number one for sure, definitely.
I think so, yeah. As cool as the Ganon fight was, like, there is something just awesome about seeing Volvagia come back after so long.
Yeah, and it was the environment was really good, so you had to pay more attention to the environment, the fight, like it was longer too. It was probably one of the more longer boss fights.
Yeah.
And yeah, it added a difficulty that not a lot of the other boss fights have.
Hey everyone! If you enjoyed this clip and want to see more of the Zelda Cast, make sure to head over to your favorite podcast platform of choice and subscribe. There are over 200 episodes in the vault that will provide you with hundreds of hours of Zelda content for you to enjoy. You can listen to us when you're on a walk, fighting Ganon, trying to sleep, whatever. And if you want to see these shows as they happen, make sure to head over to twitch.tv/the Zelda Cast, where you can watch our beautiful faces talk about Zelda every single week. Don't miss out, and we'll see you next time.